Luke, thank you, sir. I want to bring in now Congressman Bill Keating. Congressman Keating is a Democrat from Massachusetts, ranking member of the House Terrorism Subcommittee and a member of the Homeland Security Committee. Sir, good to have you with me, and I want to talk about the bill you introduced after the attack in Orlando last month. So explain to folks what it does, and also how specifically you're trying to get support in the days ahead.
Well, people really scratched their heads when they determined that the terrorist in Orlando was under FBI investigation, and yet the FBI was not alerted when he was trying to purchase a gun legally. What the terror gap legislation is that I'm proposing would alert the FBI that that person was attempting to purchase a weapon, even though they were no longer on the watch list.
But Omar Mateen at that point was not under an active investigation.
That's precisely the point. They would be alerted, had they been under that investigation before, that this person was trying to purchase the weapons. Then they'd be armed with that information and be able to act.
Sir, but should an American who was not under active FBI investigation, so obviously there is a presumption of innocence, this is what other Americans fear is a problem with getting on a terror watch list or being presumed guilty, that would automatically make them unavailable to Second Amendment rights. So with Omar Mateen not under active investigation, he would have access to purchase weapons legally.
The terror gap legislation that I'm proposing only alerts the FBI to that effect. They still have to move forward with the evidence they have. But wouldn't you think it's common sense that after you've had an investigation and close that investigation, in part because the time constraints of that investigation are limited under law, so that you'd like to know later on if that person purchased a gun, because that's valuable information to have.
But we had that information that he legally purchased the gun. They were able to trace where those guns came from. But gun right advocates, they would push back on you about what you're trying to do here in saying that there's a presumption of guilt for law-abiding Americans that would like access to Second Amendment rights. And how would you combat that?
My legislation merely, I was a former prosecutor, and I'm aware of the constraints. We're ministers of justice. We balance those aspects of people's rights off. What this merely does is give information that's valuable to know. And that information could be a catalyst to saying, you know what, let's look a little deeper with what's going on with this person and be able to act should they be moving down a course of terrorism. So all it does is provide the information. It does not stop them from any of their constitutional rights.
So you think that the approach there and the reasoning would be legally is that this would be a trigger effect to potentially red flag the FBI that someone that had been under active investigation has now legally purchased some type of weapon or weapons that could make them a person of interest again?
Well, we investigated the Boston Marathon bombing in depth after a year, and we found a lot of red flags that were frankly missed in that bombing that may have prevented that from occurring. One of the things we found out was when they do have investigations into people's activities, sometimes because of the constraints of time that are under law, the case gets closed prematurely or it gets closed and cut off from ever seeing the other information that ensues later. So this is very similar. This simply says that if someone that was under investigation for terrorist activities later on tries to purchase a weapon at a point when that investigation, the active investigation, is closed, that they're aware of that. They can choose not to act on it, or they can consider it valuable information that could save lives.
Congressman Bill Keating, we'll be watching what happens between the time you get back to work and the time before the next recess, and if there is any movement on gun reform. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So still ahead, new details.